welcome to the first Anime Twin Cities 2024 Board Election Candidate Q&A session. Due to the large amount of candidates we received for the open board position this year, we are going to have two of these. There will be another one tomorrow. And to try to keep things moving, we do have set time limits for all of the questions that we're doing today. Nick is going to be our timekeeper. So I believe if you go over time, Nick is going to wave his hand.
Yeah, I think maybe you'll just
or,
use the app like this.
Yes, wonderful. Perfect. That makes more sense than just kind of raise your hand. Yeah. So basically, all 5 candidates that we're doing today, they have 3 minutes to make a speech, and then there are questions that were prepared from the board. There are 5 questions, and they have 3 minutes to answer each of those questions, and then we will be open to the questions that were submitted from the members for 5 minutes. And I believe that is everything I wanted to cover. So we should be able to go ahead and get started with Hope.
I'm first. Okay. My name is Hope Cronin. I have been around.
Let me pause you 1 second. Oh, sorry. Is there still music playing, Bruce?
It should be paused. Oh, it was playing in the backside. Okay, my bad.
Okay, so let me do my intro over again because apparently the music was playing over me. Okay, so we have quite a few candidates, so we're doing 2 candidate Q&A sessions, one tonight and one tomorrow. To keep things moving, we have set time limits for each portion of the speech. Watching myself on the YouTube is not helping. So basically, Nick is going to be our timekeeper, and he's going to push the raise hand button if anyone goes over their time. And basically, we're going to have a speech of a maximum of 3 minutes. Then there are questions that are being presented by the board, with which they have 3 minutes each to answer. And then we will be open to the questions that were submitted by the membership for 5 minutes. Sorry about the issue with the music. Sorry to interrupt you, Hope.
No, it's fine. I'm not sure what I'm doing anyway. So, my name is Hope Cronin. I have been around the Anime Detour and Anime Twin Cities community for quite a few years now. I'm really invested in our community and making sure that it grows and that we have the best community that we could put forward to the general public. A real big thing for me has been, and if you've been hearing me in past meetings from when I was staff, is documentation and standardization. That would go for across all the board, including on the board. One big sticking point for me has always been that I feel that if you are on the board, that you shouldn't be somebody in a high position of Anime Detour, which is why I decided to step down as the head of volunteers after this year. That's really all I can say about me. I mean, if you have any questions, everybody knows how to find me. So. Oh, hello.
Sorry, I forgot I muted myself when I was drinking. Okay, wonderful. So then the first question from the board is, what experience do you have in planning and executing events, and how would you leverage this experience to enhance Anime Twin Cities events and activities?
Well, I was the head of the Anime Detour volunteer department for quite a few years. And so, I mean, I've been a part of that scene for quite a while, being able to take the information and helping plan the event for the best of my ability. I'm pretty big in a couple of like some other personal communities like my church and things of that nature. But um, yeah, no, that's pretty much
Okay.
how I would say. I'm really bad at this, but
That's okay. And we made you go first. You've got it the
yeah.
hardest because you have to go first. Okay. The second question is, what new initiatives or programs would you propose to drive the growth of Anime Twin Cities and attract new members and attendees to our events?
Big thing I think would be pushing Anime Twin Cities information to the general public much more aggressively. Um, it's always sort of been the sort of thing where most people don't know what Anime Twin Cities is. Everybody knows what Anime Detour is. Um, but people don't really know what Anime Twin Cities is until those people become staff, and that's something that I think is harming our community more so than benefiting our community. And so I would really love to see more outreach happen to hopefully change that and allow people to know and understand what Anime Twin Cities does, and like, I don't know, like bring back picnics that we used to do, game nights. I know Heather used to do way back when she was a part of SOS, did game nights at random places to like sort of drive interaction, that sort of thing. I think that would be a really good change to bring back, would just be get that information out there to the general public more.
Okay. Are you familiar with the Anime Twin Cities bylaws, and are there any bylaws that you think that could be improved?
I am familiar with the bylaws, yes. I think more so than a specific bylaw being improved, that the bylaws as a whole need to have more information and more detail put into them, because right now a lot of it is good information, but also a lot of there could be more information in certain parts explaining other details that are within the bylaws that I think would be a good thing to push forward, and that's definitely something that I would look forward to discussing if I do get elected to the board.
Okay. And then what is the role of the ATC Board of Directors, and how are we partnered with our community events like Anime Tour?
I would consider the Anime Twin Cities Board of Directors more overseers in the sense of, I suppose you could put it in a branch of like upper management, I suppose, is how I would view it. Being there as a support system for either clarifying or um, assisting the community. Anime teacher is just one part of that. Um, but it would be more of a not something that would necessarily like overlord over everything, but more of a can work together towards a common goal sort of situation.
Okay. And then the last question, as a board member, how would you address a situation where you disagree with a board decision, particularly when other members challenge your position on the issue? Please explain your approach in terms of interactions with both fellow board members and the public.
Always 100% keep it professional, even if you don't agree with
Address a
my
situation
stance
where
on
you
something, or I
disagree with
don't
a
agree with
board
your stance on
decision.
something. I'm not going to disrespect you because your opinion is different than mine. Listen is a big part of the things that I always strive to do, and respect towards the other people. Just because your opinion is different than mine doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to lash out at you and be rude to you, because your opinions and your thoughts on things are just as valued and just as important as mine, even if they differ. Um, so always being respectful is a big thing for me.
Okay. That is the end of the questions that were from the board. So now we're going to be open to questions from the audience. I know that some of my coworkers here have that spreadsheet up, so take it away.
All right, I will start here. How would you increase the transparency of the board's actions?
Well, increasing the transparency of the board's actions would start with the bylaws and being able to make sure that all of the documentation and standardization is cohesive and that the information is put out in a timely and what's the word I'm looking for? And just a timely manner, I suppose, and making sure that it the information is sent out either via email or through the social media networks, whatever system is appropriate for the information to be distributed, that it is distributed, as long as it is information that is public knowledge to that the members deserve to know, would be the best that I can say, I guess.
Okay. The next one is I'm kind of feeling like it's two parts, so I guess I'll ask the first part and then the second because I feel like it's just really long if I try to do it all as one. What is your experience working with the larger community outside of the volunteer department in order to I feel like this is not a question, kind of. In order to attract more members. Oh, they just didn't put a question mark. That's why I felt like it wasn't.
Could you repeat that in one sentence,
Yes,
please?
sorry.
Thank you.
What is your experience working with the larger community outside of the volunteer department in order to attract more members?
I mean, I have been sort of squirreled away into the volunteer department when it comes to Anime Detour. However, I definitely have no qualms about, talking and engaging with other people outside of my department. But so, I mean, interacting and talking with people in general is always a great way to bring in more, discussions and new life to the situation, either through that be either Facebook or social media. Um, but just communication and talking with people in a natural and friendly manner would be, I think, the easiest way to go about that.
Okay. And then just the second part, how are you able to make that diverse, equitable, inclusive, and accessible?
I'm not quite sure I understand what they mean by that.
I think I don't know. I'm guessing just based off of the first part.
I don't know how to answer that because I don't understand the question. I am so sorry. I mean, I'm assuming just it means how would you put that into effect? I mean, my process would be to be talking with people, so talking with people. I'm sorry if that doesn't answer your question. I just don't understand it.
Okay. Were there other questions from the audience for Hope in there?
Nope.
Okay. So with that, then I guess we are good with Hope. And thank you so much. Then let's see. I have my schedule here. Next up, I have Bruce. Would you like to give your speech, please?
Sure. First off, can everyone hear me fine? Okay. So first off, I want to thank everyone for the previous few months of this very short, albeit very short term, and best of luck to all the candidates who are running. To start off, I am probably one of the newest people in terms of being involved with Anime Detour and Anime Twin Cities, having not really come onto staff until 2023 through staff exchange through my home convention of Anime Nebrascon, where I serve as basically the tech director, which is the equivalent to the technology services role for Anime Detour. And I've been serving in that role for 5 years. This will be going on to year 6, and I've been involved, at least in the convention scene, with Anime Nebraska since 2019 when I moved up to Omaha from the mid-Missouri area. My background is varied in terms of what kind of careers I've worked in. Professionally, I work IT, but I've also, for the previous 4 or 5 years, I've also held second second job just to make ends meet, and the primary component of that area has been customer service. So always trying to go above and beyond, trying to make, make it right, trying to make it the best situation possible, and always end up them leaving with a smile. And what I pretty much am seeking re-election for is to continue the work I started of hopefully providing a solid foundation for Anime Twin Cities and by proxy Anime Detour to build upon for hopefully 20 plus years to come, considering that's how long the organization and the event has been around. Where that will be done will be through a solid foundation of documentation that will be clear to understand and will be communicated by leadership that's all on the same page, that is going to foster an open and non-hostile environment.
Okay, thank you. So then we will begin with our lovely board questions. What experience do you have in planning and executing events, and how would you leverage this experience to enhance Anime Twin Cities events and activities?
So when it comes to the event planning side, I've been involved with the anime convention scene since April of 2019. 1 year in a staff role, and the rest has been within upper leadership echelons in Anime Nebraska, and then the last 2 years as general staff or general tech staff for Detouring 23, and then this year is the tech services head. Outside of that, I've also been education officer for my fraternities when I was in college. So I was essentially doing project management work to plan weekly meetings to go over our educational requirements while we were a pledge class. I also have demonstrated a special committee when I was part of my fraternity to see if joining the Interfraternal Council at the University of Missouri Columbia, and to basically field if that was a viable opportunity and something that the organization wanted to pursue at that point. In terms of general event planning, I do regular project management work in my daily role as infrastructure engineer at Nebraska Furniture Mart. And in that regard, I am basically drawing my own deadlines, self-working, and keeping myself accountable in regards to that, as well as reporting to the necessary stakeholders what needs to be done. How I would translate that for Anime Twin Cities and by proxy Anime Detour is maintaining an open line of communication and ensuring that everyone's on the same page and that there is no issues or no qualms with that. As some of my tech staff can say, transparency is 100% what I value within the organization, and I keep them aware of what is going on, what issues are going to may occur, and bottom line, if there's a problem, I have them tell me if it needs to be fixed, because I can take constructive criticism as well as give it if it's asked for.
Okay. Then the second question is, what new initiatives or programs would you propose to drive the growth of Anime Twin Cities and attract new members and attendees to our events?
So one component of that that Hope actually touched on previously in hers is the possibility of getting the SOS team restarted back up, but also look at it as being a more staff morale booster, and that could be something that's allocated as a separate budget line item for Anime Twin Cities, whether that be restarting the picnics, a barbecue, doing a group trip out to Valley Forge, or what other amusement parks may be near the area, to help foster community between the organization, as well as looking at maybe different avenues of creating smaller events, such as doing a fundraiser screening or having a component of holding like a formal ball type of thing with a silent auction component that can be raised for charity, that can also be utilized to raise funds for the organization itself to help increase budgets for various departments as time goes on and as demands need increase it that route, and just use it as a way for general outreach to the community. It will involve better social media publicity on that part, whether it be working with local radio stations as well as news stations, and also just targeting your core demographic when using your social media platforms. I mean, I don't know what the marketing aspect looked like, but I definitely feel like we could be targeting our demographics better for that. and it's not that hard to do organically as well as a paid route.
Okay. The third question, are you familiar with the Anime Twin Cities bylaws, and are there any bylaws that you think could be improved?
Yes, I am familiar with bylaws as I've helped assist and review them prior to joining the board just so I can understand them. And I do think the bylaws need to be expanded with documented process and procedure, and as a whole for the organization, a foundation of process and procedure needs to be done. Echoing what is the actual reporting structure, who has the ultimate authority in that regard, and just to better communicate of this is what the responsibilities for our staff are. I do also feel that a creation of an ethics officer role should be something that is looked into. That can be a neutral third party that everyone, regardless of the whether it's at Anime Detour level or Anime Twin Cities, to privately echo their concerns, and then they will conduct a necessary report back to the board, and then depending on the level of what the event is, report to whatever the current leadership team is at that point, and make recommendations based on the actions to prevent any misuse of power or in cases of retaliation or unnecessary bans.
Okay. And what is the role of the ATC Board of Directors, and how are we partnered with our community events like Anime Detour?
Anime Detour is the governing organization of any and all events. At this point, at this time, it is only Anime Detour, but they are the organization that provides the monetary contribution for the event to actually happen. They also are responsible for helping select the leadership that will be running the convention, in addition to also being the ones responsible to set an example of how the organization should function. In terms of the community, it can be through the various outreach projects that we do, whether it be approving the funds to assist with ToshoCon being run by the libraries in there, or other requests for potential other events such as the Oban Festival that is done there with the Sister Cities organization. And then it's also there to serve as a place of hopefully last resort in case of issues that may occur. And hopefully it's not something that has to be utilized, but the Anime Twin Cities board has the ultimate authority to make decisions if current leadership at the event level is not doing what they are told.
And then just to clarify, I think like the very first time you meant to say Anime Twin Cities, you said Anime Detour, but you were talking about the parent org as Anime Twin Cities.
Yes, it may have confused that.
Yep. They both start with an A. Okay. The last board question, as a board member, how would you address a situation where you disagree with a board decision, particularly when other members challenge your position on the issue? Please explain your approach in terms of interactions with both fellow board members and the public.
I try to get both sides of the story. The main thing is I try to actively listen and understand where they're coming from, and hopefully without a hostile tone being used. The key factor is it's a two-way street. You have to understand what you may necessarily be opposed for, but you also need to understand what you stand for as well. But the main thing is it can be done in a civil and adult-like manner. It doesn't have to devolve into high school level antics and drama. We all have regular jobs. We all have different things outside of this, and we're doing this out of our own part of heart. We're doing this 100% not being paid. And in terms of how I approach it, it's like I asked to be called out on my stuff easily. If one of my subheads needs to tell me I'm doing something wrong, chances are I may just be oblivious of not knowing that. Because sometimes I just get in the zone when I'm doing something, and that's that. And if you tell me what it is, then I will work on fixing it. But at the same point, if you're going to go in a route of being passive aggressive or a route of not actually trying to do it or trying to step around it, you don't have to sugarcoat things. We're adults. We can handle this and we can do different levels of things.
Thank you. Okay, that is the last board question. Did we have any attendee questions come in?
How would you increase the transparency of the board's actions? And yeah.
So with increasing the board's transparency and actions, making better access to minutes, having it actively be communicated when meetings are, whether pushing that into the Anime Detour Discord, putting that on our necessary pages, also creating a routine monthly newsletter type of thing where the minutes from the previous event are pushed out with a little bit of blurb or details of what's going on, roll up the reports of the committee chairs that are putting within that. It's just a matter of pushing it out to as many different avenues that we can, and it's on the membership constituency to actually read it on there. I mean, it's going to take both sides to do this. It's going to take the membership to actively read it and pursue if they want to be informed, but on the board side as well, we can push to put the information out there and do the best of our ability within whatever limitations we may have to present all the information that we can. Christina, you're muted.
Sorry. Thank you very much for answering that. Were there any other membership questions? Oh, okay. Then with that, it looks like our next person on our schedule tonight is Andrew. So there you are, and you can go ahead with your speech.
All right, I am Andrew. A lot of you who are probably watching right now know me as Specs. I've been around Anime Detour itself for about 18 years now, and just going on 16 years for staff, spending the entire department or the entire time in the tech department. But I have been around for a lot of other conventions. I've been in for KitsuneCon, I've been with Colossal Con, and a slew of other conventions that I help out with tech department and helping go in and just give assistance where needed. I do run a few different organizations, smaller ones, but usually car organizations, car clubs, stuff like that. For the most part, I'm here today on application just to go and see what I can learn, see what I can end up going and enhancing for Anime Twin Cities, and that's about it.
Myself again. Okay. Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and go on to the first board question. What experience do you have in planning and executing events, and how would you leverage this experience to enhance Anime Twin Cities events and activities?
Well, as stated before, I've worked with multiple conventions. I've also done car events, and promoting those is not an easy task, getting the word out and getting a bunch of people from all over the place. One great way is social media presence, but the other way would be having more, how would I put it? More proficient acts within the convention committees to try and partner up with other conventions to try and promote more and get our reach out further. It's something that would end up going and doing a lot of positive reinforcement to actually get us out there a lot more and get us more well known.
Okay. Then the second question, what new initiatives or programs would you propose to drive the growth of Anime Twin Cities and attract new members and attendees to our events?
One big thing, branching off from what Bruce and Hope had said, definitely bringing back the SOS, the picnics, the big events that we would do in the off season for the main conventions underneath or the convention under Anime Twin Cities. But stuff like getting out into different communities would not be a bad idea, such as uh, the car community is one big thing. There is a lot in the Midwest that would end up going and attending an event for that, or a car show to pull in new people into the convention. There's stuff that could be done, such as public outreach programs for, say, elementary schools could end up getting us in there, middle schools, high schools, stuff like that to put new fans into Anime Twin Cities and actually get us out there a lot more.
Okay, cool. Are you familiar with the Anime Twin Cities bylaws, and are there any bylaws that you think could be improved?
I am familiar with them. I have been rereading them for about a couple weeks now, just to refresh my knowledge. But I would say as a whole, it definitely needs more detail, more expansion onto certain bylaws in there and certain subsects of such bylaws. It would not be the worst thing to get that professionally redone and expand it heavily to make sure that there is no stone unturned, to be able to figure out what is the exact statement of each bylaw and making sure that it is full clarity for each of them.
Okay. And then what is the role of the ATC Board of Directors, and how are we partnered with our community events like Anime Detour?
The role of Anime Twin Cities Board of Directors is not only for overseeing and making sure that they make sure that the selection of the committee chairs and the allocations of funds to different groups that ask for assistance and help underneath themselves, or external groups that end up going and asking for such assistance, such as charity and otherwise. We also, Anime Twin Cities does approve any of the budgets for any events that end up that are under the umbrella of Anime Twin Cities.
Okay. All right. And then as a board member, how would you address a situation where you disagree with a board decision, particularly when other members challenge your position on the issue? Please explain your approach in terms of interactions with both fellow board members and the public.
Calmness is key, as well as diplomacy. You need to go and talk things out, figure out both sides, and make sure that both parties are in understanding of the statements under disagreement, and then come to a mutual neutral ground to end up going and figuring out a positive solution between the two. Or if that cannot be reached, the topic shall be dropped and brought up at another later point to end up going under further discussion.
Okay. That is the last of the board questions. Did we have any questions from the membership?
Yes. How will you increase the transparency of the board's actions?
Same question everybody's been getting. The transparency could be improved a little bit. It's all depending on what is actual public knowledge or what is to be made public knowledge. If something is on the border of that, there is a discretion there of the decision to be made, whether or not it could be brought out to the public, to public knowledge, or whether it would have to remain a closed, such as a closed documentation at that time, where it cannot be discussed until further mentioning has been brought up and it has been concluded and finalized. Transparency would be key, and to make sure that everything runs smoothly and that the attendees and supporters of Anime Twin City would have the full trust of the board and all they do and offer.
Okay. Are there any other members' questions? Nope. All right. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Yep, thank you.
All right. And now it is Tony's turn to give his speech.
Hello, everybody hear me just fine?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So, my name is Tony LaBerge. I have been working with this convention for 10 plus years now. About 8 or 9 of those as department head of facilities. I have a wife and 2 children that all also attend the convention. And uh, I mean, I guess that's really all I've got for kind of like an introduction. Really, the questions are kind of the meat of this. So just a little get to know me there. Is that that's who I am. So
Okay, thank you. Sounds great. So then the first question is, what experience do you have in planning and executing events, and how would you leverage this experience to enhance Anime Twin Cities events and activities?
all right. So my experience would be the last 10 years of or 10 plus years of working with specifically Anime Detour as one of the events that's placed by the parent organization of Anime Twin Cities. I've also previously been a member of this board during a period of time when we had COVID come through and had to shut down the convention for a year. So I'd say that I've had that kind of experience. I've also, and this will answer another question here. I was also part of a group that worked on kind of continuing to develop the bylaws to try to fill some gaps. I don't feel that process was completed, and I've since actually learned quite a bit more about that process since I was a part of it. And yeah, there's some things I'd like to change on that front. So that's I've had all that experience, and that's kind of that experience has driven me to understand the organization a lot better, and understand how to kind of put on a better um, uh, event, as well as to work with other organizations to push ATC's goals of outreach.
Okay. And then what new initiatives or programs would you propose to drive the growth of Anime Twin Cities and attract new members and attendees to our events?
Outreach. One of those would be our ambassador program. We need to do a lot. I don't know if I'd say a better job, but more outreach to other conventions within the area. Kind of develop those relationships for staff sharing, as well as for membership, to drive those people that are in near areas and maybe drive from closer to our convention to another convention. Drive those people to want to come to our event as well. I think that our marketing department, which I don't think exists all that much right now, does need kind of to be bolstered. We need to put a little bit more effort into marketing. I don't believe we have an actual marketing coordinator at the moment, but that definitely needs to be bolstered so that we can market ourselves better, to drive that engagement and to get people to know that we exist and to come to our events, be it detour or if we are able to develop a new SOS, possibly with a different name. But yeah, kind of to develop those extra, what do you call them? events. We really shouldn't have Detour be our only event as Anime Twin Cities, not only for a revenue point of view, but also just for that outreach. Having Detour be the only thing is kind of limiting.
Okay. Are you familiar with the Anime Twin Cities bylaws, and are there any bylaws you think could be improved?
Yeah, so I'm familiar with them. As I stated before, I was part of the board when there were some major revisions being made to them. But I don't know if I would say that there's any specific bylaws that I feel like need to be added or changed. I feel like the entire system needs to be scrapped and to be redone from the ground up by someone who actually knows what they're doing and does that for a living. That is none of us. So yeah, I would say that the bylaws that I feel like need to be added or changed would be all of them. Needs to be completely rewritten.
Okay. And then what is the role of the ATC Board of Directors, and how are we partnered with our community events like Anime Detour?
So how we're partnered with them is that essentially we provide funding. Anime Detour, in a way, stands on its own. The coordinator for Detour, as well as coordinator for marketing, or if we were to have another social outreach type group, or like we used to have Suinshi. I believe I'm saying that right. I might have butchered that. I'm sorry if I butchered that name. Which was the anime club where, I think Ted was the leader of that for a while, showed anime. I think it's more so ATC is like it's like a tent that all of these other things are under. We provide the funding for those things, the advertisement for those things, support. It's all about the support for those organizations, for those events, to provide the best events possible, but not to tell them what to do. It is the coordinator's job to deal with their own group. The board does review those coordinators on a yearly basis for performance, but that performance should be gauged based upon what they've done within that year. Have you gotten people to come to your events? Are we driving that engagement? Are we getting either revenue, or even if there's not revenue out of those things, like Suinshi I don't think ever provided revenue. It's that getting people to see that we exist and to know that we have our organization, to broaden that group of people that know who we are.
Okay. And then as a board member, how would you address a situation where you disagree with a board decision, particularly when other members challenge your position on the issue? Please explain your approach in terms of interactions with both fellow board members and the public.
So that's kind of an easy one. It's a voting board. So not everyone has to agree on all issues. That's kind of why it's voted upon, not coming to a consensus. It's not every decision is unanimous. That's kind of how boards work, is not everybody is always going to agree on everything. And when we come to a vote, if I were to vote differently from someone else, that's my vote, that's their vote. When it comes to somebody questioning me on my personal decision on that vote, it would be I have my personal view of what would be best for the organization. I can let you know why I vote a certain way. I can tell you what my belief is based upon the facts of that and how I feel like we should be going forward. And if the majority of the board doesn't agree with that specific decision, then they don't. If they do, then they do. It's really kind of a simple thing that it's not a personal issue. It's a what's best for the organization, and board decisions are not always going to be unanimous. That's kind of the nature of a board. When it comes to the public, the same kind of situation applies. If someone asks me why I made a specific decision, a specific vote on an issue, that's going to be something that I'll let them know why I made that decision and why I voted the way I did, what I feel that decision would be best, or how I feel that decision would have been best for the organization.
Okay. Thank you. That is the last of the board questions. Are there any questions from the membership?
Take a guess at what it is. Same question everybody's gotten. I'll repeat it just so it's fresh. How would you increase the transparency of the board's actions?
I think it's a question that's been asked of everyone because I think it's a very important question. I think there has been a lot of lack of transparency in the current board. And I think a good way to alleviate that would be to first would be not to have private meetings or secret meetings that are unnecessary. If a meeting needs to take place in between regularly scheduled meetings, unless that meeting is specifically about a confidential matter, that meeting should be streamed just like any normal meeting. People may not be able to attend that meeting, time-wise. That's understandable that emergency meetings sometimes need to happen. But those meetings should be recorded just like every other meeting. Those meeting notes should be as thorough as possible. And really the only kind of secret meetings, so to speak, or private meetings would be anything that specifically relates to confidential information. Those are really the only kinds of meetings that ever should be private. Anything that would be dealing with a specific legal matter would be something that would be confidential. But if it's not a legal matter, if the information itself is not confidential, cannot be shared with anyone outside of specifically the board or the person involved, it should always be made completely 100% public. Videos should be made just like every single other meeting. So I think that would be a big step in the right direction towards transparency. Rewriting the bylaws is another huge step towards transparency, making sure that everything is very, very well set out as exactly how things should be done, not leaving things up to, well, this is kind of how we've always done it, or, well, I mean, the bylaws are, kind of vague, so we'll just do it how we want. Not okay. Everything needs to be spelled out very specifically in those bylaws, and those bylaws need to be followed to the letter for people to view us as being transparent, as well as just to get that trust in the membership.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the membership for Tony?
Let me scroll down just to see if there's any new ones that came up. There is not. That was the only one.
I've got one quick statement in regards to the questions. I'd like everyone to know that if there are any further questions for anybody viewing this later, between now and the actual election, I will be accepting any questions anyone has for me directly. You can send it to my I currently only have an Anime Detour email. That would be anthony.laberge@animedetour.com. I'll spell that out: ANTHONY LABERGE @animedetour.com. You can send me those questions. I will answer them before the election. Also, if you don't have a question, but you just want to get the answers to the whatever questions people may have for me, you can email me and just let me know that, hey, I want to be included on the return for those questions, and I will include you on those on the return answering of those questions.
Okay. Thank you so much. And then with that, we did get a message from Hotura that unfortunately she had something come up, so she actually is not going to be able to make it tonight. So we will go ahead and add her on to the end of tomorrow. And we will see you all back here tomorrow evening. Thank you very much.